And so I think people, see our work and come to the studio and see that, they're wanting that level of sort of fresh playfulness. And so I think that actually our clients are really just as crazy as we are.
The Power of Two, a podcast presented by Brickworks Building Products.
G'day, I'm Tim Ross and welcome to The Power of Two, a podcast where I talk to architects who are partners in work and in life. In this episode, we'll hear from Monique and Scott Woodward from Melbourne's WOWOWA, which I've mispronounced at too many architecture awards to count. Their mantra is life's too short for boring spaces, and we'll hear about how their clients have embraced this to the hilt. Also in this chat, we'll hear about the power of an old school shopfront for getting clients and their belief in brand building. It's time to hear from the stylish Monique and Scott from WOWOWA. Scott, Mon, thank you so much for talking to me on the podcast today. How are we?
We're very well, thanks, Tim.
Before we get into how you guys met, it's worth mentioning that you are 2 months away from having your first child. How are you feeling?
Well, it's my first child. It's Scott has his 16-year-old Miller, who is a built-in babysitter. And but I'm doing really well.
Yeah, Scott, how are you feeling?
No, very excited. All the mistakes that I made with the first child, I have the opportunity to fix them with the second now.
Yeah,
true, very true.
Now, enough about your first project. Let's go back in time, shall we? How did you guys meet?
Well, I was a student and Scott was the project architect at Cassandra Complex, which is a practice run by Santa Fe, and it did Sam Newman House and the Platypussery and all these amazing, really colourful projects in Melbourne. And and I guess it sort of whittled down to just the two of us, and I guess it was an opportunity to fall in love.
We should stress that you weren't a 15-year-old student, I'm sure.
Yeah. This is at university, not at high school.
Yeah.
Scott, is that how you remember it?
Yeah, pretty much. It was an interesting time, and we worked together at Cassandra Complex for probably about 8 months or so. And then Mon actually went on exchange to Denmark for about 8 months, I think it was, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when she came back, we basically moved in together.
Well, that was quick. Did the romance happen while you were away, or there was something before that and then you realised that it was supposed to be?
Well, it was more that I got back from exchange and needed a place to stay. And so, we moved in and then thought, well, we loved working together at Cassandra Complex. Why not start WOWOWA?
But you were together as a couple then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I worked at ARM for a year after I finished major project, and then Scott was at BKK, and then there was a lot of clients, that old Cassandra Complex clients that were still around, and we thought, well, we'll start a practice and finish off a few of those projects, and that's how WOWOWA was born eventually.
When you decided to do that, was that a huge decision for you? It's just like, we're in this moment at the moment, let's just do this and see how it happens.
Yeah, it felt like a pretty natural progression.
Yeah, I think it was sort of it's interesting because we worked at our home for Carlton Homes for 4 years, at the first 4 years of WOWOWA, and I was reflecting the other day that it was interesting that this is our 10th year, and it's sort of bookended, our decade's bookended by, GFC and then coronavirus, global pandemic, where we're working from home again. So, we like to keep it chill.
It feels like we've come a long way, but not that far because we're back working at home.
The GFC has come up a lot in this series of podcasts. Many of the practices have, started around that time. How did it influence your business, the hardship of that time?
I mean, in a way, I think it taught us kind of the resilience that maybe we need for right now as well. And, it teaches you to be nimble and agile and appreciative of what you can achieve in a tough moment. So, I mean, for us, it kind of seems really natural to be, fighting to keep the business open. And, and I think that really did inform the whole decade, trying to move into public work and how do you do that? And, when you sort of no one's handing you a civic job on a platter. So I think that sort of grittiness of getting in there and trying to be innovative actually was a trait.
Do you have young people working for you that are losing their minds?
I don't know. Everyone is so amazing. I mean, we have like the best team ever. There's 12 of us, and we're just having the best time at the minute. I don't know. It's just, obviously it's hard, and everyone's working from home. But the other day, everyone sort of made these like avatars of themselves, and we were having these like dance party gifts and things like that. I don't know. I think we're just trying to make sure that we're all in a really good headspace and trying to, communicate a lot with our clients. And
there's a sense of fun, isn't there, with what you do? Where did that come from? Has that always been part of the ethos?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think it's always sort of been part of the places that we've worked in the past as well. And, it's just us too. Like, I think we like to try different things and different approaches to the way that we go about what we do. And, a lot of the time it can be, a little bit too serious. So actually sort of engaging with humour and being playful is pretty important to us.
And I think that really did that, when we started the practice, we wanted it to be the practice we'd wished we'd worked at as students. I think that was our, core mantra, along with, I'm obsessed with mantras. The other one is life's too short for boring spaces. And I feel like, which sort of seemed a bit sort of hokey when we came up with it. But, when you've got your clients repeating that back to you and sort of going, no, we'll go for the really bright orange, that sort of work.
But what was the breakthrough moment for your business?
I mean, I would say that it was moving into our Rathdown Street shopfront. So we were there for 5 years, and it just gave us this huge visibility to the street. It's in, Rathdown Street, Carlton North. A lot of clients sort of walk past and like, oh, we'll have a six-pack of architecture, thanks. And it sort of made us, I guess, feel more professional. And we only recently moved out of that office when we grew out of it into our new Collingwood premises, our fancy pants studio that's currently sitting deserted.
That moving, was it hard to leave even though you needed more space?
I think it's almost like when you decide, when clients decide to do a reno and then everything starts falling apart. I think when we decided that we needed to move, like everything was falling apart in the studio. The floor was just breaking, and I don't know, it was just all a bit, everyone was very excited to move.
Yeah, but it was such a great space for that period, and it was exactly what we needed. And it had that immediacy as well, just being on the street front, that was amazing for us and really helped us pick up clients. And, it kept it fun because we were part of the community in that area, just because we were all sitting right in the window.
And so talk us through, how you got work out of that, people just walking past, or you got to know people.
Yeah, literally people just walk past.
Oh, God, I've got this house around the corner. Can you come around and have a look at it? Bang, job done.
Totally.
Yeah, when we first moved into the space, I was there on a weekend painting the tabletops because we were painting them all bright colours. And this lady just opened the door and she was like, oh, where'd you get your tables from? And I was like, oh, I'm making them right here, right now. And she was like, oh, they're really cool. And then just probably a few months later, she actually called us, and it was Tanya from the Merry Creek house, and that's how we actually got that job.
I think so much is spoken about in terms of getting work published and the power of Instagram, but the concept of localism and being in a place and people being able to walk past and see you as a shop front's a really important lesson for people, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we always sort of think about, the various sort of touch points that people might, so they might have seen the shop front and then they might have gone to Instagram and then they might have seen one of my videos or something like that, or they might have seen us in a magazine or a podcast. And so, I think it really is that, people take a long time to decide who their architect should be. We always say, you're going to be dating for a really long time, so you may as well get to know the person before. And so I think that it's really just a mixture of all those things.
This idea of life being too short for boring spaces. When people come through the doors to see you, are they buying into that idea straight away? Do you have to talk them into it, or is it just, you don't like what we do, you've come to the wrong place?
I think it's more that now, now our brand, I think presence is so obviously very colourful and playful and whimsical and, all those yummy things. And so I think people, see our work and come to the studio and see that, they're wanting that level of sort of fresh playfulness. And so I think that actually our clients are really just as crazy as we are. So, but if they're wanting, a kind of black box or something, we kind of send them to our friends, other architects who they'd be much more suited to. So we do that a lot, and vice versa. If someone just comes along and says they want something crazy, often other architects will sort of handball those clients to us. So I think it's sort of a really nice community in Melbourne, which is something that I love more than anything.
Scott, starting with you, what's the best thing about working together?
Let's see. I mean, for us, it's just the way that we've always known each other. So, we've always, basically we met while we were working together, and it's just like this ongoing thing that's just developed over time, and it's always been really fun, and it makes work fun. It's just the way that we've always been and the way that we've always known each other. So that sort of keeps, what we do actually engaging and exciting, I think.
Is there a separation of work in your house?
Yeah, well, I think that, it would be sort of intense to sort of like sit next to each other all the time. So we have an amazing team now. We have another director of WOWOWA, Andre Beneath. We have two associates, Jean and Zoe, and then there's this amazing team of ladies who, smash architecture on the daily. And so, Scott and I often sit at the complete opposite ends of the studio so that we can have a bit of separation, so that at the end of the day when we're, going home, it's like, hey, honey, what did you do today? And we always work on different projects, and we do. I think we are a bit conscious. I mean, when we go out in a social event, we sort of, divide and conquer. So we don't hang out. Yeah.
We're off doing our own thing at events and parties and things like that.
And then come together at the end of the night. I mean, in terms of having a third director who's obviously, unless I've got this wrong, isn't in a relationship with you guys in some sort of kooky way. How does that work in terms of making sure that people, feel that they have a say or they don't get ganged up on?
I think there's the personalities of everyone within the team. That they're not shy. Everyone shares their opinion, and it's a very open platform, a very horizontal structure. And so,
we're very transparent in the office too. Like everything's pretty much open for discussion, but throughout the whole team. So I think that everyone has that chance to kind of chip in and say how they feel.
Yeah, and we'd actually say that they were doing a disservice to the studio not to, complain about something or, say that something should be better or done in a different way. And so, a lot of that came out of our B Corp certification, which is, I guess, one of the proudest things that I think we've done over the decade is, B Corp is the highest global certification for social and environmental sustainability. And there's only 5 architecture practices in Australia that have been able to achieve that. It's like a year-long certification process, and it investigates all of your business, basically, from your highest paid person, your lowest paid person, your recycling soft plastics, all the elements of the practice. And so I think that level of transparency came out.
In order to do that, what's the process?
It's a grueling questionnaire that you start with, and you get a point system, and then you basically have to prove that you do certain things, like maternity leave, and which is convenient for me now, and paternity leave, very convenient for Scott. But yeah, I mean, we've had a few, we're going to have a few babies in the studio, and I think it's important, to follow that Kennedy Nolan model to allow everyone to live their best lives and be as happy as they possibly can be within the studio, and allow that sort of flexibility. And I think that in a way, Rona has sort of allowed us to make it even more flexible, that everyone can work from home. And, I feel way more comfortable about going on maternity leave now that I can just log in and have that remote access, which, is going to be good for everyone and probably bad for everyone. I'll have like extreme baby brain and just ordering people around still.
Or you may just be in infatuation land and be happy not to worry about work for a while. You never know how it's gonna fly.
Yeah. Either way, all good.
Let's talk about the key projects that you're proud of. Starting with you, Scott, what are you proud of?
Pretty proud that we actually managed to complete the Coolora Park social club or sports club. That was a pretty amazing project that it took so much time to actually make that project and get it started and find funding for it, which we were really involved with all of that funding advocacy and making it happen. So, when the government committed the funds to it, that was a pretty amazing moment. And then to actually see that project through and see it get built, and then for you and Bob Murphy to go down there and use it as a backdrop was pretty amazing.
I mean, yes. Well, Mon, you had a personal involvement in the area or the club, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I'm from Berwick originally, and my dad was on the coterie. So we basically had to beg them to allow us to do some pro bono work for them. And then, we did plans and renders, and then they were able to get secure bipartisan support for the project. So that was our first kind of inkling of the politics of space, and we kind of fell in love with that idea, community advocacy, ever since.
I mean, as a sporting club, it's so inspiring because, I think, great design in the suburbs where kids hang out, where families hang out, and they don't have to be boring spaces, and they can be fun, and they're so formative, I think. And I think that particular building for all those kids be there hanging out, watching their either playing sport or watching their parents play sport will have a huge impact. They also can be conservative places. And was it hard to get them fired up to embrace interesting design?
I think we were able to kind of slip it in there, because we'd kind of been so involved from the start. There were these sort of key moves that we made, and again came up with a mantra of cheap, fun, and classy, which sort of helped. But it had to be cheap because the club was funding it a lot of it themselves, and trying to achieve a lot for a small budget. Fun because it had the junior club and the kids that had sort of previously been not sort of engaged with the rooms themselves, the facilities, because it was a bit sort of like a sticky 70s bar. And then classy because there was a netballers, and we wanted the ladies to and their families to come and hang out, and for it to be truly a community space. So, one of our kind of tricks was to paint the bathrooms. We wanted it to be this really intense, sort of stripy, colourful, optimistic experience. And they went and painted them white, and it served as a really good base coat for when Scott and I came in there with a roller and actually rolled the paint ourselves, because they weren't convinced and they didn't want to pay, for the painters to do it, which was fair for Scott and I. I mean, Scott did sculpture, fine art before architecture, and so we just taped up the bathrooms and went to town.
As you mentioned, it was the perfect backdrop to do Bob Murphy's show on Foxtel to talk about sport and memories. And then, of course, and then having this extension with architecture. I loved it. And I also got to have a can of Melbourne and a pie at 10 o'clock in the morning, which was perfect. It's fantastic space. You're listening to The Power of Two, and my guests are Monique and Scott from WOWOWA. If you'd like to see any of the projects discussed in this series, just head to the gallery at brickworks.com.au. Let's talk about domestic architecture and your use of brick. And why has that been important to you, and what's it offered to those projects?
Being from Melbourne, I think, we love brick. We love the solidity of brick. We love, how robust it is. Our Mary Creek house, that's in the awards program this year, which we're really excited about. It, kind of in a very interesting spot of Fitzroy North, between the burbs and the wilderness of Mary Creek. And, we wanted a visual language that was very, contextual. There was a lot of triple fronted, waterfall deco houses in the area. And so we, dreamed up these circular brick turrets, or these big water tower, rural water tower type structures, and, turned that into a house pretty much. So there was these 3 turrets, all in brick, one, 2 drums, and then a deconstructed one as you sort of move towards the wilderness of the back of the property. And we kind of wanted people to, be able to feel and touch, the craftsmanship of the brick. And as you walked around the turrets, you kind of do feel inspired by the scale of them. And it wouldn't be the same if it was made out of any other material. The clients kind of like that idea that, one of them came from a farm, and I think that their house, one of the neighbours' houses would burn down, and it was, the fireplace, the brick fireplace that remained in place. And so I think that, they were keen for it to kind of really settle into the landscape, and for for that kind of, to have a sense of legacy and permanence, given that it was their forever house.
Yeah, and I think those brick or the water towers in those rural towns are just these beautiful ornate brick buildings that have like curved arches, and they're just generally the tallest structures that are in those towns as well. So you can see them from everywhere. So they were really important to this project for us. I think we actually do quite a lot from them.
Yeah, and now the landscape's, really grown in that space. It was done by Sam Cox, and, it just feels like this really woolly, bushy kind of wilderness, that we always wanted it to have. And, it feels really cozy. But I guess like our love of brick has been throughout all of our residential projects. So the one before that was Tiger Prawn House, which is an extension in Fitzroy North, and where we did these, beautiful scalloped, double-story scalloped facade at the back. The front was a double-story Victorian terrace, and we wanted, the front to be or the back to be as robust as the front. And that was a really glorious little project.
It's such a striking house, and I suppose the thing that interests me the most about it is this idea about working with people for a forever house in a time where you view property as a commodity, and Australians, tend to sell their houses, on average every 4 to 5 years. Why is it important that you design forever houses for people?
Well, I think it makes people a lot bolder in the decisions that they make about the design if they're thinking about it in a much longer term, rather than just thinking about houses as something that, you flip and then you move on to the next one. So you can actually sort of tailor it and custom design it a lot more and make bolder decisions if you're thinking about it for a much longer period of time.
I think it also takes a long time to actually design your dream house. And so most people just don't sell, architect homes. It's very rare to have them on the market because there's, people can tell quality and they don't want to let that go. And, it's more often that, a client might, do a project with one architect and then maybe, they'd only move to do another project with another architect, kind of thing that, you kind of get addicted to that level of quality and customization that, our clients normally come to us and they're wearing these amazing outfits and we sort of say, well, let's design your outfit right there. That's you, right?
Yeah.
We want it to be about you. We don't actually want it to be about us. And I think that's, intoxicating.
And using this Tiger Prawn house in terms of being a bold feature, when you presented that to your clients, how did they react?
Well, it was interesting because those clients had actually seen one of my If You Were Mine videos. They were based on, Robin Boyd, famous Melbourne architect that I'm sure everyone listening to this podcast knows. He did these sketches of all these different typologies of houses. So Spanish mesh, triple fronted brick veneer, boom style house. So I went through and made these curbside reviews of what I would do if that house was mine. And one of them, I colloquially called a tiger prawn because of the hawthorn kind of bricks, brown and cream bricks. And the idea was that people would share these and then, we'd get a call one day and say, hey, I've got a tiger prawn house. And that's exactly what happened. And so really, the idea of the tiger prawn came from the clients and then, that we were looking at the structure of the tiger prawn, or prawns in general. One of the clients was a lawyer. And so I love don't come the raw prawn at me. Just saying. And then, so when we presented this like curvy scallop thing, it seems obvious that that the sort of geometry and delight came from the original genesis.
I encourage people to check out the videos, and I think they're really great. And I think why they're really important is it sort of shows a lot about what you both have been talking about, which is a true engagement with the city that is it's such a Melbourne thing. And you're talking about the collegiate scene between architects and a deeper interest in the city, I think is really important and what makes the city so great. Will you work together forever?
Depends on how this interview goes.
I guess so. I mean, I think that the brand of WOWOWA is really strong, and it kind of allows us to do a whole gamut of different things. I co-curated the national conference last year called Collective Agency, and we all have our sort of little passion projects that we do on the side of WOWOWA, and bringing it in to allow the brand of WOWOWA to be this sort of thought leadership icon is sort of nice. And so I think that there's a level of freedom that really, really fun group of people has sort of allowed to or facilitated. So I think it will go on forever because it's sort of it gives us the freedom to do what we want, and so I can't see it dying.
Well, Scott, the decision's been made for you.
Yeah, that's excellent.
As long as we make it to the other side of coronavirus, I think it'll be fine.
I think you'll be fine. Final thing. Let's go back to the start. Doing year 10 work experience. No, you're a real student and you're working together. Would you ever have imagined that you would be here today working together, very successful business, and expecting your first child?
No. I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, I guess back then, I was just a, ambitious little so-and-so architect or, wannabe architect. I think that architecture is a long game. It's a hard game. The actual uni work itself is challenging. And I guess I sort of thought, well, I don't know what the future holds, but if I, celebrate the small wins and just work really, really hard, then I'm sure it'll work out. And I guess it kind of has.
Scott, could you ever imagine you'd be here today?
I don't think so. Those early days, it was just like getting started was just it seemed so slow and so hard. And it took quite a long time to really build up the practice of what is today. So it is pretty amazing to think about it now. But then again, I didn't think I'd be a premiership supporter, and 2016 changed that. So happy about that.
We all have dreams. The magic does happen, guys. Good luck with everything. Really delightful to chat to you, and it was really fascinating. And I can't wait to see what's next for you both personally and professionally. All the best.
Thank
you.
You've been listening to The Power of Two, which is presented by Brickworks Building Products. For more on this series, you can visit brickworks.com.au, or you can check out the Brickworks YouTube channel, or go to the Apple Podcasts app. I'm Tim Ross. Thanks so much for listening.